Hello, BookTube. There was a sensible course of action today. I have been feeling under the weather for a week, and the sensible course of action today would have been to stay in bed. To stay in bed and just continue to recuperate. I'm very lucky in that I can work in bed. I'm very lucky in that my little dog is not pressing to go outside at all times. She's very comfortable being indoors for long stretches of time. I could have done that. That would have been the sensible thing to do. But instead, a number of factors conspired to make me go out. I went out and did errands first thing this morning. There were a number of factors, and I want to go through them in a vain attempt to justify myself. Factor number one was that weather is on the way, which is usually what prompts me to do errands. If I think that bad weather is on the way, that starts to make the one clear day look like a really good target. There's a massive winter storm that is battering right now as I'm making this video. It's battering huge parts of the country in the west and all along the upper Midwest. Like I mentioned yesterday, it really does look like by the time it gets to the middle of the country, it really does look like it's just going to arc along the top of the United States. So Boston, I think, will probably miss quite a bit. But the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and New Hampshire and Vermont are going to get socked. It looks like. I mean, there's no way really to know this far out, but that's headed this way. That some sort of weather is coming here tonight and will be here tomorrow. So that would rule out tomorrow for any kind of errands. But that was factor number one, because the weather was on the way. And for going back eons, when I've got errands that are sort of floating around out there, going back eons, one of the factors that pressures me is there oncoming weather of some kind. I mean, is there a heat wave that's really going to break on a given Tuesday? Well, then you should do your errands on Monday and get them out of the way. So that was one factor. And then another factor was a bag, the bag drama that I've been dragging you all through. I wanted to field test this bag. We Frankensteined this just yesterday, and I wanted to field test it and see what it was like in a normal course of errands. And it failed. It failed that test pretty dramatically. It turns out, first of all, I mentioned that the front of this bag has a flap, but only the front. The main body of the bag does not. The flap is not on this side, so it doesn't drop over the whole of the bag. So that when this is full, and it was completely full, the contents are open to the air. And when I was doing that video, I mentioned that I would have to cover them if it was inclement weather. And it wasn't inclement weather this morning, but what I forgot to take into account is that it would also be open to just everything else, not just the weather, but people looking at it. Totally unacceptable. Just 100% unacceptable. I wasn't 5 minutes in to doing errands in this thing before I knew that regardless of the work that I did to Frankenstein it, I'm not going to use it as my bag. I'll keep it because the bags like that can be really good as impromptu luggage, but I won't use it as my daily bag. Instead, I'm going to throw caution to the wind and use this as my daily bag. This has a gigantic, very generous flap over the whole of the bag and a pretty good amount of space on the inside. The only problem that I have with it is the same that I have everywhere, which is that the basis of the strap is starting to pull away from the bag. I say to heck with it. I'm going to do it until it falls apart and just use it rather than just have it sit around. It is one of the only bags, it and the leather bag are one of the only bags I have in my roster that I actually like, as opposed to just useful qualities that I actually like. So I'm going to switch to that. But that update is for Bag Tuesday. So that was factor number two, is that I wanted to field test this bag. And factor number three was that I have recently had a rather world-shaking existential period of doubt when it comes to e-reading. All of my Kindles are way up on a shelf up there. They're not in use because they've all been acting up. I really love e-reading. I have the MarkBot right here, which is an Android tablet that is nice and bright, very pretty screen. Love to read on it. But the combined fact of Amazon deciding to to act up on its Kindles, and also uh, Penguin Publishers and the Roald Dahl estate deciding to roll over and censor Dahl's work. And when that's done electronically, that will mean that once the deal is done, your versions will simply swap out on your e-reader. If you've got all of Roald Dahl that you bought from Amazon years ago and it's been sitting on your Kindle all this time, when you go into it, it will be the politically correct ones. It'll be the ones that one person at Creative Minds Incorporated, Inclusive Minds Incorporated, wants you to read, the version that she likes. I don't care what version you like or what version you grew up reading. The combination of all of those things has had me shifting a little bit of my attention back towards good old-fashioned analog books that are clunky and can be inconvenient. They're certainly more fragile in a lot of ways. They're less room for annotating or anything like that, but they don't change. They're mine. They're my property. Nothing can come in and alter them once they're in my home. The combination of all three of those things really was enough to override my good sense. So I went out. And I did errands. I mailed off a bunch of books to a bunch of you, and I went to the Brattle Bookshop in Boston. It was a beautiful, clear morning, bright blue skies. Those skies have gone. The outer edge of this gigantic storm is now visible here in Boston. There's no weather. I think weather will hold off until after sunset, but there's no bright blue skies anymore either. But there were when I went out and about. Beautiful morning, always wonderful to go to the Brattle Bookshop. Those of you who are new to the channel, and unfortunately, or fortunately, of course, I love your faces, but there are new people here watching the channel. The Brattle Bookshop is a used bookstore in downtown Boston that I just love. I just love it. It's jam-packed with books on 3 floors, every kind of book imaginable except romance. And it also has a sale lot next to the shop with thousands more books, thousands of them, for $1, $3, or $5 in no order. They're not arranged in any way except by price. So you really owe it to yourself at some point, if you're near the Brattle, to not only go, but allot time to simply idly wander the carts outside. The real joy for me is to go to the sale lot and go all along the carts. So I'm not bouncing randomly from place to place. I'm looking at everything. You look at one row of carts all the way back to the dumpster, then all the way back out to the street, and then when you're done with that, you look on all the wall. There are books along the wall on one side, then you cross over and look at all the books on the wall on the other side. That takes time to do. And I did that this morning, intending to test this bag, and it carried the weight just fine, but I want to be able to cover my bag. That's not too much to ask. So that bag goes on the heap, but I got a pile of books. Just an absolute pile of books that I wanted to show you. Good old-fashioned analog books, but no one can change. No one can delete them. They cannot have strange sigils in them. They cannot malfunction. A printed book cannot malfunction. The mass market paperback, for instance, is a quintessentially perfect piece of technology. It has limits, as all technology does. It won't, for instance, help you in any way. You don't understand a word? Tough. Go somewhere else and find out what it means. Don't understand an allusion or a historical reference? Tough. Unless it's footnoted. The book doesn't care. Tough. It's not interactive in any way. You don't get it? Go somewhere else. You want to annotate heavily? Well, it's a mass market paperback, so you're not going to have a whole lot of room for that. It's been marginally misprinted, and the type is going way down into the gutter. Well, too bad. Buy another copy. Good luck. Can't adjust anything. Can't do anything like that. Nevertheless, the mass market paperback needs light. You need light. You need a light source to read it. I don't need as much light source as other people do, but I still need some. Whereas e-reading technology, no, they have their own light. They come with their own light. They are reliant on electricity, but I got a bunch of analog books, and it was particularly satisfying for me to do that today after all this fuss with electronic reading. So let's see what we have here. Okay, the first batch, a lot of these are mass market paperbacks, and the first batch of mass market paperbacks is me just storing away roughage and nuts for June on the Range. Michael K. Vaughan last year created a booktube event called June on the Range where we all read westerns, and it took off. I had a feeling that it would be well received, but I had no idea that it would be so meteorically popular. And I also loved it. I read a lot of things that I don't think I would ever have read, and I learned a lot. And I've been sort of making a mental point here to collect westerns in 2023, but not to read them. I'm storing them away for June on the Range, and I found a bunch. I found one by Richard Poole called West of Devil's Canyon. Look at that. Huh? I found one by Frank Gruber called, why does that name sound familiar? No. Called Bitter Sage, where obviously he has just shot a man. And he's got discharge from the gun, but also this little whirlwind around himself. And the back of the book calls this a Frank Gruber Western. So I'm assuming from that he was well known and that he has a lot of other titles. A lot of these authors do. A lot of these authors I've never heard of have 200 books to their credit. Then we have Day of the Gun by Richard Telfair, and this is another thing that indicates more backstock. Day of the Gun is billed here as another Wyoming Jones story of the West. So there must be other Wyoming Jones stories. This is the little town of Sarrett woke lazily that morning, unaware that it had rendezvoused with destiny. And the main character is Wyoming Jones. Well, I guess it's going to be in other books. Then we have, this is by Dan J. Stevens. This is called The Land Grabbers. And once again, he's just, there's a saddle and no horse and plenty of discharge all around him. This has an old Target price tag. I will get that off there. What do we got here? When Deputy Johnny Lund came to Mallard City, he thought he had a simple job ahead of him. All he had to do was keep the peace while the land company ran a lottery to distribute the Mallard Range land, which did happen. Look it up. Look up some of those old Western history books. You'll see. Lund wasn't looking for trouble and didn't expect to find any, but trouble found Johnny Lund, and he knew that before it was over, he would have to take sides in the most terrible gunfight Mallard City had ever seen. You wonder how high a bar that is to cross. And in the back here is somebody's phone number, which I will not try. And then finally, John and Margaret Harris, a very rare appearance by a woman's name on one of these old Western novels. And they're, I guess, a married couple. I'm kind of interested to know their history. I don't know anything about this, but this is called Chant of the Hawk. And it says that it's in the tradition of The Way West and The Big Sky, which are both really good novels. They're not just good westerns; they're genuinely good novels. I don't know about this. He's got a compliant squaw. That this might not age well, but we shall see. So I got all of those, just a bunch of westerns that I'm just going to squirrel away for June on the Range. Then I found, let's see here. Well, these are sort of grouped. I found just a body swap fantasy novel. There was once upon a time a very popular subgenre of fantasy and science fiction where the main character is a schlub or an old man or infirm or diseased in some way, and walks through a closet or hears a horn, trumpet, or wears a new collar or a new helmet or something like that, and suddenly transformed into an action hero. There's a huge little subgenre of those, and I found one of those. I don't know this at all. This is Monster from Out of Time by Frank Belknap Long. Frank Frazetta cover, but this is about one of that. This is about a young scientist is plunged into a world of Ice Age barbarians and cataclysmic terrors. I believe it's him and his girlfriend or his wife. Does it say on the back here? David, a young scientist, and his pretty girlfriend Joan are among the people who are terrified by a big, hairy, glowing creature that crawls out of the sea. But David is not content with a distant look. At sundown, when the crowd has gone, David and Joan return, and that's when it happened. A blinding light was all they remembered. Suddenly, David and Joan were plunged through time into a world of towering glaciers and prehistoric beings. All right, so that might not be a body swap. That might just be a Pellucidar type thing, where they have their own bodies, but they're in a totally different world. And then this thing, I would ordinarily not have got even a mass market paperback in this kind of condition, but I don't know when I would ever see it. This, I believe, is also a Frank Frazetta cover. This is Tomorrow Midnight by Ray Bradbury. And you might be thinking, well, okay, don't you see lots of mass market paperbacks? Why would you bother to get it in such horrible condition? That's because I didn't want to pass it up, because this is a collection of comic books. This is not an anthology of short stories. This is a collection of Ray Bradbury stories in, look at that, Al Williamson. All right, good Lord. An Al Williamson story that I'm sure I have never seen. I'm sure that I never have. I wonder if this actually tells me uh, the whole thing. That's all of this is. It's just landscape mode comic books. I wonder if this will tell me who the artists are. Yes, it does. John Severin, Joe Orlando. It's going to get a little thumbs up from Michael K. Vaughan. Jack Cammon, Wally Wood. That's going to get another thumbs up from Michael K. Vaughan, and me too. Will Elder and Al Williamson. Fantastic. So Al Williamson and Bill Everett, I know. So, but a collection of illustrated Ray Bradbury cartoons. I wasn't going to pass that up. Let's see here. Let's keep going. So this next one is not Al Williamson. This is Jack Williamson, science fiction author Jack Williamson. He wrote a ton of stuff. I have not read all of it. I don't think I've ever read these. I found a 2-in-1 novel called SETI Ship and SETI Shock. I don't think I've read either one of these. I think this is about antimatter, about a dangerous power source of some kind. I don't know that this will tell me. CT, also known as antimatter. CT atoms are the basic matter of the universe in mirror image, atoms with negative nuclei and positive electrons. The difference is invisible, immaterial, until matter and antimatter touch. Then the unlike particles explode into free energy, an ultimate reaction that makes uranium fission seem as feeble as a safety match. Okay, great. So this is 2 of them in one volume. In terms of science fiction, just to keep the science fiction going a little, I found this thing. Donald Walheim, just a random. Donald Walheim did a million anthologies of science fiction. This is one of the old Daw yellow spine mass market paperbacks, best of 1977. So who is in here? You'll probably want to know. Kind of want to know myself. We have Appearance of Life by Brian Aldiss. I've actually read that. Fantastic. We have Overdrawn at the Memory Bank by John Varley. Those Good Old Days of Liquid Fuel by Michael Coney. Don't know that author at all, I don't think. The Hertford Manuscript by Richard Cowper. Okay, I have read that in a Richard Cowper collection. I loved it. I'm kind of interesting to know, though, because James Tiptree's name is on the cover. I'm kind of interested to know, from 77, what Tiptree would that have been? Her Haploid Heart? Houston, do you read? Well, I don't know. It could be a much earlier story. Let's just keep going. We have Natural Advantage by Lester Del Rey. I kind of liked the Lester Del Rey that I've read recently. The Bicentennial Man by Isaac Asimov. The Cabinet of Oliver Naylor by Barrington Bailey. Do you sci-fi nutjobs know that name? I don't know that I know the name Barrington Bailey. What would I do? My Boat by Joanna Russ. Oh my. You know what I wouldn't give for a big fat mass market old paperback collection of the great long short stories of Joanna Russ. Does such a thing even exist? I don't think I've ever seen one. What I wouldn't give to have them all in one place instead of scattered all over the place. Okay, it's Houston, Do You Read by James Tiptree. And then I See You by Damon Knight. Just a solid Don Walheim anthology. He had a really good ear. He had really picked things well. Then we have some fantasy, some high fantasy. We have 2 more Thongor novels by Lynn Carter. I don't think I have these. I think these may be everything except Young Thongor, which I don't think Young Thongor ever came out in one of these great old pulpy mass market paperbacks. I don't think it ever did. I think it had a very different publication history. And I have a fairly good source I can go to find out the ins and outs of that publication history for Young Thongor. But I don't think that exists in these. But I did find 2 others. I think that I have 3 more, so 5 in total. We have Thongor and the Dragon City. Neither one of those 2, I believe, is Thongor. I think he's just off stage for this cover. And then Thongor Fights the Pirates of Tarkaris. Fantastic. Unless I have both of these, I could easily have both of these. I'll give it a try. These were $1 a piece, so I wasn't. This is a nice thing about the dollar section of the sale lot is that you can just hoover up anything that's remotely interesting. You don't have to worry about consulting databases or lists on your phone or anything like that because you're out $1 if you make a mistake. Then I found, oh my, I found a batch of Edgar Rice Burroughs. I have all of Edgar Rice Burroughs, almost everything, on ebook. But who trusts ebooks? Who trusts ebooks right now? I'm sure that my paranoia will calm down. But right now, I'm looking at all those ebooks and I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't have any uh, Hornblower novels in analog print and paper. I don't have any of them. They're all on e-copy. What if something goes wrong with them? Same thing's true with Edgar Rice Burroughs. I have a lot of it, but I don't have all of it. And I have everything in ebook, but I found some, for instance, these old Ace paperbacks of some Tarzan novels. Now, when it comes to paperbacks, mass market paperbacks of Tarzan, I really prefer that great Ballantine run with the black spines and the great cover artwork by Frank Frazetta and Boris Vallejo, I think. They did the whole run with original cover artwork, and I love the look of those. I really love that set. But they weren't there. And for $1 a piece, I found the earlier set, which was by Ace. I found Tarzan and the Lost Empire. These are no slouch covers either. I thought I really enjoyed these, and they're also smaller. I don't know if you're going to be able to make this out. They're smaller than a normal mass market paperback, which I also like. I really like that. So I found Tarzan and the Lost Empire. Mark Sandman put his name on the cover in pen. So I'm hoping that he's roasting in hell. Then we found Tarzan Triumphant. A terrific cover. Look at that. Just fantastic. And finally, Tarzan at the Earth's Core. Which is Tarzan visiting Pellucidar. And this is, I almost want to say that Michael K. Vaughan just did a video on this cover artist. No, cover art and title illustration by Frank Frazetta. So this is a Frank Frazetta cover. Not entirely successful Frank Frazetta cover. Both the short-faced cave bear and Tarzan himself seem to be made out of cooking dough. And also a little bit ridiculous. That is a short-faced cave bear, and there is a human being with a knife. Could not win. I know I'm as big a fan of Tarzan as anybody, but a human being with a knife couldn't. These things, look them up if you don't believe me. They were enormous. They were enormous. They made grizzly bears look like panda bears. But anyway, and then to top this off, I found a bunch of John Carter of Mars novels. I love Tarzan, but I really love John Carter. John Carter is my favorite Edgar Rice Burroughs creation. I've read all the Tarzan novels many times. I've read all the Carson of Venus novels many times. All the other stuff, the fiction and the nonfiction, all of it. But the Barsoom novels of Edgar Rice Burroughs, those I have read to scriptural levels. Those I have read forever. I'm always in the mood for them. And once again, same thing with those Ballantine Black Spine Tarzan novels. Ballantine also came out with a whole run of Tales of Barsoom, all of the John Carter novels, with gorgeous cover illustrations by Michael Whelan, I want to say. All of them. Unbelievably beautiful things. Bright and colorful. So I have those. I have all of those paperbacks, and I love them. But I have nothing against the earlier run of Edgar Rice Burroughs. I found 4 of them today. Actually, 3 from one run and 1 from another. Found the first one, A Princess of Mars. A weird cover. If I had been the editor here, I can't quite make out the artist's name, but if I had been the editor here, I would have sent this back and said, well, okay, the woman is entirely covered up in drapery. The man is not looking anywhere. He's not looking at anything. And also, the man is too old. We're told that John Carter looks like he's in his early 30s. This man is in his 50s. This is just an ineffective cover. It gives you no sense whatsoever of the joys of this book. So I would have sent it back. But the next one, Gods of Mars, that's not a bad cover at all. That's really good. It doesn't make any sense for the book, but that is a really good cover. Then we have A Fighting Man of Mars. Look at how busy that is. The more you zoom in, the more you see the aerial ships of Mars, men fighting each other. And then a totally different design. This was, I looked for more of these. I would gladly have taken the whole set of this. This is Swords of Mars. Again, we have one of the floating fighting ships of Mars, one of them firing on the other. No people, really, that you can see, just the arid Martian landscape. This is the only one of these that I found. So a whole bunch of Edgar Rice Burroughs, a whole bunch of Bongor, a whole bunch of science fiction just in general. But it wasn't all brain candy. there were serious books as well. Like, for instance, I found this. This is by Noel Gershon. It's a biography of Light Horse Harry Lee in mass market paperback. This is not a novel. As far as I know, no one's ever written a novel of Light Horse Harry Lee. This is a biography from the 70s of a famous member of the Lee family, one of the three members of the Lee family who fought with Washington on the American side in the American Revolution. Never read a biography of Light Horse Harry Lee. I couldn't believe it. Once upon a time, people made these things like that in mass market paperbacks. Now, no. Now, nothing serious comes out then. So-called serious. Then I found a Penguin Classic. I'm always up to add to the Penguin Classic bookcase. And I found one that I don't think I've ever had, and I'm actually going to give it a try. I'll reinforce it a little so I don't wear off the edges of the cover. But this is Short Stories by Thomas Hardy, who's one of those authors that I always feel like I should like him more than I do. I know that he has avid fans. I hear from them every Victober. I really, really like Return of the Native for about its first half. And then it gets weird to me. Just all of Hardy's novels just seem to me to be so psychologically hanging out their laundry. And it kind of spills over to his poetry, which again I know I'm supposed to like. Well, I found this The Distracted Creature and Other Tales. This is a Penguin mass market paperback of short stories by Hardy that were not chosen by time period. They were just chosen. The editor, Susan Hill, chose them just because she thought they were really good, spanning the whole of his career. So, worth a try to re-examine. Then we have another mass market paperback. This one has no trouble with me liking it. I absolutely love this novel, as you can tell by the fact that I've mentioned it endless times on this channel and also done, I think, 2 different read-alongs of it. This is The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope. In these old, great, yellow-spine Oxford World Classics. Oxford World Classics reprinted all of Trollope for his centenary, I think, of his death or something like that. There was some anniversary that caused them to do it. They all new introductions, all new notes, a lot of times preserving the original artwork from the original editions. That whole shelf of Oxford Trollope is masterful. I had it once upon a time in this room. And I thought, nah. And got rid of them all. I've been slowly gathering them together again. Now, I have a couple of different copies of The Way We Live Now, but I love this novel so much. I just love it so much. Just find this is in perfect condition. This looks like it just came off the press from Oxford 40 years ago, and even finding it at random and knowing that I need a really good condition because one of the mass market paperback I have of this from Oxford is falling apart. Even just finding this at random made me not only want to reread it, but do another read-along of it. Insane. Absolutely insane how much I love this book. Then we have slightly bigger books. All these were mass markets. Now we have some hardcovers and larger paperbacks. Just a few of them, and then we'll wrap up. Like this one here. This is A.M.R. Wright. I have no idea who that is. Don't know anything about this author. But this is Old Ironsides. And it is a novelization. It says it right on the cover. This is a novelization of a movie script from 1926. So this was a long, long time ago when this book was cobbled together by the studio as an advertising adjunct to the movie. It was a silent movie that came out in 1926 that has, if I remember correctly, in an early bit part, it has Boris Karloff. The stars you will not remember. Now, no one except Sean Stanfast will know the stars or anything like that. It was a silent movie about Old Ironsides, the USS Constitution, she's birthed here in Boston. And for a long time in her history, right around a little bit before this movie and this novelization came out, she was a training vessel, and there was all sorts of talk about worse than that, about just being towed out into the harbor and used for target practice, until a famous poet wrote a poem lamenting the fact that the United States as a country owes a significant portion of its independence to this vessel. The reason why there aren't any other original period vessels like this in museums around the world is because she sent all of them to the bottom of the ocean. And that caused public outcry. The nation suddenly rose in defense of old Ironsides. And uh, there was a drive, a school drive. School children were asked to bring in their pennies or their nickels, and it was all for the sake of saving old Ironsides. And the movie was made in conjunction with that as well. I think that the movie donated part of its proceeds to the fund to save old Ironsides. And this is a novelization of that movie. Deb and I saw this movie when it came out. And it was a little bit draggy in the second half, so we were in a darkened theater, so we got busy, and the result, well, some of our kids turned out well, but little Benito, he did not. He did not. He went wrong right away. You might have heard of him, but this has illustrations from the movie. Look at that. It has these are effectively publicity stills from the movie. Here we have the young hero. There he is, pitching woo. Can you believe it? Now, I am pretty sure that AMR Wright's novelization of Old Ironsides, I'm pretty sure that it was never printed again. I'm pretty sure that it came and went. This is probably not a good novel. This is a novelization of some of the adventures of Old Ironsides, plus a love story and a boy goes to sea adventure story. But like, for instance, this, I'm pretty sure, is just 1926. Yeah, this is just copyright 1926 with no mention of any later printings. I'm pretty sure that the book came and went. I'm going to be fascinated to read it, though. Absolutely, I know Old Ironsides very well. Then we have something. This is kind of a Brattle do-over. The Brattle is, those of you who aren't familiar with me talking about it endlessly, they're always out buying, always, and far and wide. So the stock is always turning over. Absolutely amazingly so. Like, for instance, you look at this thing. This is a curiosity from 1926. If you found this at a normal bookstore and you were in the least bit interested, you would grab it. And the foremost reason why, you'd be thinking, I'll never see this again. I'd be willing to bet that in the next 5 years I see another copy of this. It's Brattle. Maybe not with a library covering on it, but I'd be willing to bet I do. It's that much of an embarrassment of riches. And I think last year I found a hardcover copy of the Jerusalem Bible, which is a great Bible edition. And I showed it on this channel. I hauled it in a Brattle haul. I'm sure that I did. And I was really happy with it. I'd never seen a hardcover before, and so I started to use it. It was way, way too heavy. I know we're talking about print books versus ebooks, but that was an egregious case. The whole time that I was flipping through it and reading chunks of it, I was thinking, this is unbelievably awkward and uncomfortable to use. And I wasn't just thinking of, well, I don't want this hardcover. I was thinking, I was introduced to the Jerusalem Bible through its paperback edition. And I really liked the paperback edition. I shouldn't have got the hardcover. I should have I've waited around for the paperback. Sure enough, today I found the paperback, which is this. A lot of you will be familiar with this. You can't really make it out on camera, but the cover has an extra thick, matted feel to it. The paper's a normal onion skin, and it doesn't have any of the color insets that the hardcover does. But this is the version that I wanted. This will do just fine. And I've long since got rid of that big hardcover Jerusalem Bible, and now I have it to add to my steadily growing collection of Bibles. So when we get back to Psalm Sunday, we will be using this as one of our regular rotation Bibles. And then finally, the last thing that I got is a second chance. I often say that the Brattle is good for second chances, where you have something, you get rid of it, and you miss it. You realize that getting rid of it was a mistake, and then it shows up at the Brattle, and you have a chance to fix your second chance. In this case, it's like third or fourth chance, because I got the advance copy of this from the publisher. I'm sure that I opened it on a mail haul on this channel. I got the finished copy from the publisher. I'm sure that I opened it on a mail haul on this channel. I wrote about it. I reviewed it. And I also got the trade paperback release of this, and I'm sure that I opened that and showed it on this channel. So I had multiple opportunities to hold on to this thing, and I read it and really enjoyed it, but I didn't hold on to it. And the reason why I grabbed it today is mainly BookTube. It's a Viking book. And there are a few booktubers who are Viking obsessed, and they all love this book. I loved it too. I have actually no good excuse for why I got rid of it, much less so many times. But this is Neil Price's book, Children of Ash and Elm. It's a nice big history of the Vikings. So this was both a Brattle second chance and also a BookTube made me do it, because I see this mentioned all the time on Viking obsessed booktube channels, and I think, I really like that. Why didn't I keep my copy? Well, here it is, so I will keep this copy. So there you go. There's no possible way to do a Steve pyramid of all of these mass market paperbacks. I got a lot, 20 mass market paperbacks today, and really enjoyed it. Extra enjoyable. The Brattle's always fun, but I have to admit it was extra enjoyable not only because there's a storm coming, so it felt like I was getting a little treat out of school, but also because I was rejoicing in analog. I read analog books, print and paper books, all last night. No e-books at all last night. I read print and paper books this afternoon as well. I'm not going back all the way to print and paper books. I still love ebooks, but there was something particularly satisfying about just getting a bag load of books that I will read in their form. I will not need to go hunting around for e-copies of them. And I have to admit, to wrap up here, there was also a bit of satisfaction in getting out of bed. Even though it was ill-advised, even though I am exhausted, I'm feeling the cost that I paid for it, but it was still satisfying. A lot of you will know what I mean. If you've been cooped up and being good and eating soup, you want to go out and experience the world again. So it was all those different reasons that I went to the Brattle. Now, tonight and tomorrow is going to be stormy. I'd be willing to bet that we don't get any snow tonight. I think it'll be sleet. And I think the sleet will probably continue on and off all day tomorrow. So I will have a perfect opportunity to sit and enjoy these things, to sit and enjoy these books. I will put the Westerns away. And there's probably no reason for me to reread any of the Edgar Rice Burroughs right away. There's probably no reason to do that. But there are plenty of other things here to dig around in. So I'm going to do that during the storm tonight and tomorrow. So I will report back, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.